The light, I think, sort of. Welcome to everybody in the room and welcome to everybody who's joining us on the live stream. As you might know, the AB and KU Leuven host a series of talks with the intention of making our beautiful music industry a better place. That is the ambition. So what do? We dive into topics that are relevant to the industry and where there's at the same time still a lot to learn. Today we're going to talk about transgressive behavior in nightlife, concerts and at festivals. Huge topic. We're going to dive into that with a wonderful panel who's already on the front row. But first, we have an introduction by, she's already here, the lovely Lisbeth Stevens. She is a doctor in law, a guest lecturer at KU Leuven as well, and she has been the deputy director for the Institute for the Equality of Women and Men for over 10 years. So safe to say that all of her years in the business have made her a trooper, a veteran when it comes to equality in our society and protecting vulnerable parties. So give her a warm welcome, please, Lisbeth Stevens.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Michelle, for those nice words. And I think my slides will come up. There's no music and no movies. It's very boring, very legal. Not there yet. Shall I just wait a little bit? They're there? Okay, they're there. So I was asked to give us an introduction into the theme of sexual harassment in the music industry. And I also would like to introduce the Institute just for a moment. We are the Belgian independent equality body in relation to gender and sex. And I think it's important, as I give this speech in English, I assume not all of you are from Belgium. I think it's good to know that in every European member state, there has to be at least one equality body who also has, like us, has to fight discrimination and violence on the grounds of sex or gender. And so you should be able to get help in different forms there. Exactly what the different equality bodies in the European Union do might differ. But in Belgium, our mission is to fight any form of discrimination based on any form of gender-based discrimination or inequality, to reinforce gender equality by taking specific actions, and to stimulate gender mainstreaming. And gender mainstreaming is a policy concept that means that you, from the day you start a policy measure, you try to include the idea or the concept that your initiative might touch upon different genders in a different way. And so if you want to avoid increasing the gap between genders, that you should, from the start on of your initiative, think about how it will affect the different genders. We do that in 4 different ways. We provide legal information and support to victims of discrimination and gender-based violence. We make recommendations to anybody who could have a positive impact on gender equality. We do research and invest in awareness training, and we try to build a community around this idea of gender equality and why it is important. So the issue of this evening is sexual harassment, and as I only have 15 minutes, I was trying to think up what to tell you. And I thought I should start with some numbers. So sexual harassment in Belgium, there is, as far as I know, only one big European study that has numbers that you can compare different countries. Because it was a study in all EU member states, amongst others in Belgium, and it was only on violence against women. I say only because men were not included in the research. In Belgium, we would never do that. If we do research on gender-based violence, we always have a part on men as well. But in a European context, it's still very common to focus on violence against women only. And in this research study, there was also a list of questions on sexual harassment. Those questions were asked to 42,000 European women, of which about 2,000 in Belgium. And there were listed 11 forms of sexual harassment, and they are grouped in 2 categories. If you see 1 to 6, those are the categories that were considered as being more serious, and 1 to 5 were considered less serious forms of sexual harassment. And then, of course, what are the numbers? Well, if looking in a lifetime, in Belgium, 6 out of 10 women say that in their lifetime they have been confronted with one of the 11 forms. If you only look at the 6 more serious forms, 47% of all women say that they have been confronted with at least one of those forms. If you look at the EU numbers, and maybe you will be a bit surprised, they are lower. So in Belgium, we have higher numbers of sexual harassment than compared to the common numbers or the average numbers in the European Union. The same goes for the yearly prevalence numbers. So if you ask of gender equality lists, namely the Scandinavian countries, were also at the top of this sexual harassment list. So that was a bit counterintuitive for the researchers, and though they thought about what could be an explanation, and one of the explanations, it could of course be that in more gender equal societies there is more sexual harassment. It is definitely conceivable that there is more contact between the sexes, and therefore that there is more risk for sexual harassment. If all women stay at home and don't work in the labor force, they cannot be harassed at work. But probably a better explanation will be that if you are living in a more gender equal society, you have more words, literally words, more ideas of what it is to be sexually harassed. And if you have concepts, we know from other research that you can better remember that you have been the victim of that type of behavior. And so the fact that there is more sexual harassment in the Scandinavian, more sexual harassment reported in the Scandinavian countries probably means that people are more sensitive for it there. And in that sense, our numbers aren't that bad. Of course they are bad, but we are with other countries that are usually quite gender equal. Now there's not that much numbers on sexual harassment in the cultural sector, but there are some. This is for Belgium. And those of you who are interested in the sources can come to me and I will provide them for you. So 7 out of 10 women working in the media or the culture sector said that they were confronted in their life with acts of transgressive behavior. 7 out of 10. Almost 1 in every 3 women who working in the sector, in the culture sector, said that they had been victim of verbal transgressive behavior or verbal harassment, and 1 out of 4 women in media. 1 out of 4 women working in the culture sector had experienced physical and or sexual transgressive behavior. 4% of all women that were questioned were reported to have been the victim of forced or coerced sexual contact. And then I think also important numbers, only 8% of all victims reported this to a professional. I'm not even talking police. That maybe could be. Don't forget, if you're into this fight, don't forget. Those different groups or issues. Don't forget about online anything they do not want to do. There are few exceptions when there's really high-risk situations, but let's hope that's not necessary. But always, always, always talk to your victim. Ask her or him what he wants. Explain what the options are, and keep their interests in mind. But of course, there's not only victims in this issue. You need to think about the perpetrators. They're the only ones who can guarantee that nothing will happen, that if a person does not become a perpetrator. Don't forget about bystanders, and have a policy towards bystanders. A lot of people do not know what they would do if they see something happen. Sometimes I think that's especially true for Belgians, but maybe that's a stereotype as well. But bystanders need to know where to go, they need to know what to do, so explain it to them. And think, of course, of the victims, where can they go, who can they talk to. Training, train everyone. It's just, we seem to think because it's sex, we all know what to do. It doesn't work like that. And by the way, sexual harassment is not sex. So you need to train people, you need to train them on stereotypes so that they don't act in a way that might even be a form of secondary victimization of the victim. So train them also not only in what they're not allowed to say, but what they are supposed to do. Train them to do this. Tell me more. Train them not to show what they are thinking. Train them to believe first and ask questions later. Make sure that everybody who is trained knows what the aim is. That a trust person does not need to be a police officer. A police officer, well, it's probably not your job to train police officers, but police officers have another role than trust persons, and so everyone has a role and needs to have a specific training for that role. And then, of course, in some cases, police and legal intervention is important, and in that regard, I would like to refer to the sexual assault referral centres in Belgium. There are 10, there will be 13 one day. There's one in Brussels, and in cases of rape or sexual assault, that's the place to go. Victims will be given holistic care, medical, forensic care, and psychological care, and they can also make a complaint, but it's not obligated to make a complaint. You're welcome, even if you don't know yet whether you want to make a formal complaint, and forensic evidence will be collected. I think I have to sort of stop. But that's really good because I'm finished. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lisbeth Stevens. I'm going to welcome my entire panel to the floor. I'm going to get you guys some water because we're going to talk about a very serious topic. Hi, everybody, again. So let's dive into our panel discussion. We have formally 1 hour to dive into a topic that most of us, and what was it, 7 out of 10 people in the industry know all about. I think the real number is quite a little bit higher. Transgressive behavior in the music industry. I'm very thankful to Lisbeth for giving us this type of introduction because we were talking about it backstage just before. There is the industry, but there's also specifically what goes on in venues, and that is what we will be focusing on. We're going to talk about concerts, nightlife, clubbing, and also festivals. Transgressive behavior taking place in those contexts with every party involved in those situations. I'm going to give you a heads up. There's room for questions at the end, so if you have a question that is popping up in your head during this talk, or you still have something that you'd like to discuss afterwards, feel free, there's room for questions. I'm going to start with introducing this panel that I have the honor of hosting. My name is Michelle, by the way. I'm a radio host. Yes, and I do this kind of thing a lot, especially when this is the subject, then I'm here. And next to me, there's Maite. She has an Instagram page that I've been following for a couple of years, maybe you guys as well. It's called Balance ton bar. You started it when you were 23. How many followers do you have at this point? Do you know by heart?
I think 34,000.
34,000 people that get stories from people in Brussels specifically that have been harassed, mostly in clubby contexts. This is an Instagram page that has been copied in 50 cities across the globe. And you also have started Artemise, which is a non-profit organization to support vulnerable survivors of sexual violence. We have Eric next to Maite, social cultural worker. You program, curate, and produce all sorts of multidisciplinary events, concerts, parties, talks, workshops, you name it. You do this at VEC. Yes, you love this.
I hate this.
Oh, really? Oh.
No, it's so weird. Like when
I thought you were
like,
taking it in. Like,
no,
I do this.
It's always so strange when people like.
Oh, I'm sorry. I have a couple of sentences.
It happens a lot. So
You do this at the VK concerts and also the art festival Les Arts. I'm not finished. I'm sorry. You're the general coordinator of Black History Month, so it goes without saying that whenever Erik is involved in a project, he will make sure to work with grassroots initiatives and create a compelling sociocultural dialogue. I'm done.
that's me.
That's Erik. Next to Erik, there is Caroline. You wrote a PhD for the KU Leuven as well about transgressive. I'm going to have this a lot this evening. Transgressive behavior in the workplace, in the broadest sense. It can go from discrimination to toxic leadership. And interesting about your PhD is that you focused on the reaction of bystanders. It was already touched upon by Elisabeth, so the reaction of other people in this context. And very interesting about this panel is that you also work for We Care a Lot, in a way. And that's where Anja comes in. Anja, you are a trooper of Pukkelpop, one of the biggest festivals we have. I'm sure we have been there. Yeah, of course. Since 2010, you work for Pukkelpop. You're responsible for customer care and customer experience, and you're part of the We Care a Lot working group, which is active since 2 festival summers at our biggest festivals. So the perfect people to have in this room to talk about transgressive behavior. Apart from the industry, which is... We can tell stories about the industry, but let's talk about the specific situations in venues, in clubs, at festivals. What is your definition of transgressive behavior? I'm going to pop the question to all 4 of you. Can we start there with maybe a definition, if it's possible?
I can start, if you like. So indeed, you can. It's a very broad concept, but it actually comes down to whatever you think of whatever that makes you feel uncomfortable. This can be verbal, this can be non-verbal, and this can be different for everyone. This has cultural differences as well. But really, transgressive behavior is anything that you experience as a person, as a witness, as a victim, to be uncomfortable. And it doesn't necessarily have to lead to physical injuries or things like that, but it's just the feeling that you get from what's happening around you, verbally or non-verbally. That would it be for me.
From the data we just saw in the presentation, there was mostly data about women. But Erik, you're here. Not an injury from sexual harassment. We can just talk about that. But it's transgressive behavior in the broadest sense. What does it mean to you?
I don't know. I feel like it would be very. It would not be easy to make like a whole broad definition, but I think maybe in the context of party or concert or just a night of hanging out is just experiencing any behavior that you did not formally consent to. Because I feel like when you buy a ticket to something or you just enter a space into something, you're consenting to something, which is consenting to seeing this artist or this DJ being able to dance and having the space to dance, and that's it. If, for example, there's going to be nudity or whatever on stage or behind the decks, this is something that should be also like on the event page and whatnot, so people can consent to going to see it by buying this ticket. I know that this. So any nudity, any touching, any long stares, any anything that you did not consent to formally by purchasing a ticket and going into that space, or not even purchasing a ticket but just going to that space, that with all the conditions that have been announced before about music and everything and performance, then I think then you're already in the zone of transgressive behavior.
Yeah. Thank you for those examples, because I felt you, for example, Maite, I felt you nodding. You have Balance ton bar, which is all about the stories of people who experience exactly that, mostly in clubby scenes. Can I ask a personal question, and how much transgressive behavior you have experienced already personally whilst going out?
Oh la la. Quite a bit. Do you hear me? Yeah,
yes, perfectly.
Yeah, quite a bit. I don't think I'm going to make the list here, because I think like every woman, we have a long list that's never ending. But yeah, it happens. I feel like it happens almost every week, every 2 weeks, you know, like whether it's in the street, whether it's at a venue. Yeah, I always experience something. So I can totally relate.
And can you tell me something about the impulse for creating your Instagram page? What was the incentive? What was the moment you decided, I have to do something with my experiences and the shared experiences of a lot of people?
Mm-hmm. Well, it was a big moment of indignation and anger, you know, because I was starting to see some testimony arise on social media coming from the Cimetière d'Ixelles, that some of you may know.
That is a club?
No, Cimetière d'Ixelles is a place. Oh. It's a zone like next to the university, the ULB and VUB, and it's a place where a lot of young people go out. And so I was seeing people talking about, you know, what they had experienced there. So it was sexual violence, chemical submission, so the fact that of drugging someone against their will. And I was seeing how the media was starting to portray that. It was really talking about individual cases as it's something that's could never happen elsewhere, you know. That's when I decided to create Balance ton bar in a willingness, you know, to centralize anything that had happened in the nightclub settings or like, you know, event settings. And as soon as I launched that, I got so many testimonies, and people wanted to share their stories and show that it's so much broader than this, and it's a systemic issue.
Yeah, it must be heavy to read all those stories, I can imagine.
Kind of, yeah.
It's social work at the same time, to filter, to read, to reply, to post, but so important. Since you have created the Instagram page, how much support from the government have you received, or have you gotten any feedback even from the legislators?
Yeah, I mean, I had lots of contacts with politicians, with legislators, you know. There had been like some good improvements. There was the change of a sexual penal code, you know, and the incorporation of the notion of chemical submission within it. So that was reformed in 2022, I think. The incorporation of the notion of incest as well, the redefinition of consent. So that was a great move. But in terms of real support from politicians, apart from cute pictures and the fact that they say, oh, we support it, no, I didn't feel a real support from them.
Yeah. How much do you need it?
We do need it. I mean, I think the fight against sexual violence really, really needs political support and political will. So, we do need it quite a bit.
Eric, can you tell me something about what you try to do? Because I see you nodding and I love it. So you recognize the stories that Maite tells, for example. What do you try to do when you're involved in an event and a project to keep it as safe as possible?
I think... like, it's strange, but I think I love the work that I do, whether it's like within, like, that I'm not contracted to do, for example. So I organize concerts at VK, but I have to work with the security team that is there. I organize parties for Kunst und Festival des Arts, but I have to work with the security team that is there. Plus, they work with this collective called Osmose, who organize, like, who are doing like kind of like care beyond safety, but also care at parties, which is like when people come in being like, hi, this is space, this is what's going to happen tonight, this is the space for this, and it's like 2 to 5 minutes that they take with everybody, but at least everybody knows what goes in there. So like those are things I have to work within those conditions. I can always ask and propose things, but I don't really control those spaces. For events that are organized outside, sometimes outside my job with my collectives in venues that we rent or that we occupy, then I try to just work with things which is prevention, with being very clear about when we're sending out the venue or the information, all this kind of stuff, a long list being like, hi, by getting into this space, you're agreeing to this, F around and find out, because we will actually remove you from the space. We try to keep an approach that is kind of abolition-based, although it's not very easy, which is we're not going to remove you from every event that we're ever going to do, but they will need to be proven change behavior before we ever admit you to this space ever again. And I think it's also because I start always from a point of what would I need myself, because I cannot speak to the experience of anyone universally, and I feel like that's the problem a lot with, and I think that's because we live in society, especially in the West, in Europe, where universality, universal experience is something that is predicated, but actually to me that is very dangerous, because I think you have to think a lot about specificities. So I think of like, okay, what did I experience and what don't I want to ever experience again? For example, earlier I posted today a picture of myself in a club at 17. I was not allowed to be in that club, but I realized that back, and I'm gay, you know, friend of Dorothy here. Because I wanted to experience from what I would see on TV and whatnot. Oh yeah, I want to go out and I'll be able to dance, and I'll be dance to poppy tunes and whatnot without having to care about how I dance and what people might clock, because I was not forcefully out yet. I'll try to sneak into clubs, because I started uni earlier. I would sneak into clubs before I could, but they would not really check my ID, because I think they wanted some black boys in there to be able to, like, they needed that demographic, because I was not getting carded, although it was quite obvious to me that I was 16, 17. And in there, I experienced all of this, like being drugged, my friends finding me a few times fully passed out, although I had not been drinking, so obviously I had been drugged. Older men seeing my youth and trying to get their way with me, and all this kind of stuff, getting touched, and not just the hair, but groped all the times and things like that. And I knew that it was because this world is unsafe for you to be out and fully out by yourself, especially when you come from a background where you don't have any means. Because that's the thing, I think the world preys on like marginalized people and vulnerable people. And so I think people were like, oh yeah, this is a young kid, he must not be that rich. And so that means he's here to have fun, so that means we can fully take advantage of them. And by then I was like, yeah, I think I never want for the next generation of black queer kids to have to go through this. So what can I do? Is get together with people and organize parties that center black queer kids, and that in time become free, so that they don't have to pay much money, because I had to pay the train, for example, to come there. So we would get drunk already before, because we couldn't afford the drinks in. So we were already in a more vulnerable state when we got in there. So like, yeah, where you can tell them, you know, bring your own drinks. You don't need bar money. You don't need to pay. And we will send everybody this contract of being like, if you behave like this, actually, we don't even have to go into all this conversation. We just remove you from the space until you prove that you can actually behave better. And that's it. It's just creating conditions that make it accessible to as many of the people that would be preyed upon even easier, because they are in a marginalized position. And yeah, how to make this safe as possible for them, as accessible as possible for them. And yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that. This is pure strength. You draw from your own personal experiences. I'm sorry, by the way, that you had to go through that.
Yeah.
At the same time, you're sometimes the most shitty chapters of your life turn into this huge comeback, and you get to use your experiences to be the strength and the power that you are today, to make sure that other people feel safe. So there's a silver lining. I think you do the same. Actually, you take horrible experiences, but turn this around or try to turn it around. And I think that's amazing. And you both do that from personal experiences, which is why it's so interesting to have lovely Anja and Caroline over there. You both work for We Care a Lot. Can you maybe just take us through the story? It's been around for 2 summers at festivals, only at the biggest festivals at this point. What do you guys do exactly?
Well, actually, We Care a Lot was initially started by the 4 biggest festivals in Belgium: Rockwerchter, Graspop, Tomorrowland and Pukkelpop. Now we are joined with Lokerse Feesten, Extrema Outdoor and Ranouter. And basically we just wanted to create a festival where everybody feels comfortable and welcome. And we have been doing regular meetings since the spring of 2022, regular meetings together. We exchange ideas, we share info, we do debriefs, we visit each other's festivals, we share the We Care a Lot logo, we have a shared website, wecarealot.be. And yeah, basically that's just it. We're trying to create more awareness about not only about transgressive behavior, but also about mental health, well-being, drugs, alcohol, and stuff like that.
The challenge, I can imagine, compared to clubbing, where you can have this hands-on approach, you did this, you can get in. Festivals are huge, and the crowds are more difficult to control. So let's say, for example, my drink has been spiked at a big festival in Belgium. You guys are there with We Care a Lot. What do you guys do? Should I find you? Can I contact you? Is there a stand? What do you guys do specifically with those very specific situations?
Yeah, in any given circumstance, the main thing you have to do is just reach out to the We Care a Lot emergency number. You can reach us through WhatsApp, you can scan a QR code, you can call us, you can hit the emergency button in our app. You can go to the We Care a Lot stand booth, you can go to the nearest first aid, and you can talk to any staff member. And from there, we will do anything within our power to get you the help that you need. We have professional staff on site 24/7. We have therapists, we have trauma psychologists, we have emergency doctors, we have lawyers, so they can provide juridisch advies.
Legal advice.
Legal advice, thank you.
Thank you.
If needed, thank you. And we also work together with the zorgcentrum, damn it, ik had het straks nog gehoord.
Thank you so much. This is a collaborative event. I love it. You make my job very easy. So a network, a lot of people
with professionals.
With professionals, that's for sure.
24/7.
Something you told me, Caroline, at dinner was that you answer the We Care a Lot phone
at night.
At night. So you're the night shift. You have the graveyard shift. That's what we call it in the sector. What is that?
She has the worst shift.
Yeah. So can you tell me something without sharing anybody's confidentiality, of course? What kind of messages do you receive? What can you do? Can you take us through a night?
Yeah. So indeed, my function in general is the safety coordinator in general, and all of the professionals of We Care a Lot are present on the festivals there as well, but they also deserve some well-deserved night rest. And at those couple of hours that they are asleep, then their phone actually comes to me. And I just pick up the messages that come in. And when necessary, I have the fortunate job to call them awake and to come and help me out because they are official professionals in...
But you do the We Care a Lot at Graspop.
at the night when those
yeah.
of we care a lot sleep.
It's different than Pukkelpop.
Yeah. How so?
It's a different audience. It's yeah.
In general, or just the nights? When you say it's different, were you talking about her shift or just?
Yeah, in general, there's different festivals attract different types of audiences, and we also see different things happening in different audiences. So it's really very specific on where you are. You will indeed also see different things happening at festivals than in clubbing, for example. So we really have some specific types of transgressive behaviors that you see more often in specific settings in that sense.
Can I dive into that topic already? Are there genres? Are there crowds? Are there festivals? You just mentioned the Graspop Metal Meeting, which is a metal festival, is different to Pukkelpop. More actions of transgressive behavior at Pukkelpop? It's a touchy subject, I know. But I'd like to know.
It's difficult to say because, and it was also addressed in the beginning, we have a major underreportation of things that are happening. So we have to do it with the things that reach us and the things that we know, which we can never say. Like, we can generalize this, we can generalize what we find. But what we, for example, see in research, so again, this is what is being reported, so not necessarily what is actually happening. We see that at the genres of electronic types of music and of R&B, we see more sexual harassment within the public. And the assumption is that it comes because of the sexualization of the environment. Okay. So you can imagine that standing at Graspop, people are often wearing a lot of clothes, black clothes, in 30 degrees, still wearing like a long sleeves. Everybody's like, how can you wear all these black hot clothing? Whereas if you would go to something as Tomorrowland, it's like the less clothes you're wearing, the better. Like you really see a difference in how people are dressing, and it's actually the environment, the sexualization of the environment that has an influence on...
that lures out the predators even more. Wow. Is that your experiences as well, Eric? For example, when you host certain specific music events, is one crowd different to the other, and what are your observations in that department?
Yeah, I mean, to me, I'm always trying to fight stigmatization in that, because again, I analyze it through a lens that is mine and my lived experience as a black gay cis man. Because I've had this, like, people were like, oh, you're going to work at VK, are you going to be able to organize LGBTQI events there because of like the harassment in that street, in that neighborhood, and all this kind of stuff, and by that staff. And so people already have preconceived notions of what's going to happen, what's not going to happen. And over a season, I've organized several activities that are like centering like queer audiences of color, black queer audiences, and so far it hasn't really been that problem, because we're trying to work ahead of those things. So I'm also not trying to be like, oh, this music genre never. I think it's good that we have data, but I feel like the data doesn't always account for intricacies. For example, so I feel like even when it comes to belief systems, going back to this thing of being a black man, when you take an intersectional lens, which again, FYI, doesn't mean just stacking oppressions, but just looking at, like, it's like an analysis tool, because people will be like, man, oh, it's privileged, black, not privileged. So it's just like, yeah, but black women, like, it's people, I feel like, don't use the tool the right way. Whereas actually in this spaces, I've been to places that are like very indeed hip hop and R&B focused, and these are some of the spaces where I have been harassed, but not in the way that people would think. It's very much like this imaginary that black man over-sexualized. And that, and also this thing where they would think like, oh yeah, since it's a man, it's kind of flattering when you get sexual attention. But actually, people will assault you, and you're gonna report it even less, because people are gonna are used to thinking that whatever colonial projections that there are on your sexual attributes and members and all this kind of stuff will be something that is pleasing. So I've had multiple times people who would come and literally put their hands on my genitals, touching like my hair and all this kind of stuff, including people from the industry who would be there and using that sort of power because they think they can have access to your body. And this is not the type of like harassment that people would think of directly because they would have you in their head as the over-sexual harasser directly in that thing. And this is something that I experienced from a lot of white women. And I feel like, indeed, because of, again, gender studies, you would think that there's a lot of innocence that is put on white women and that would never put them in this position of harasser and aggressor when it comes to a black man. And whereas I can be like, yeah, strangely, I love the people who have harassed me were white women. Yeah, not strangely, but because I'm not surprised. But again, I think it's always about like how do you frame the observations and what are the socio-analogical thing that you put on it, and also who is taught that they can be in a position of victimhood and not as, oh, this happens to you, it's flattering, it's because they want you, and all this kind of stuff. So also who can actually perceive directly when they're being harassed and when their boundaries are transgressed. And I think if we could take all of this, then I think the data could speak a lot and it would be interesting. But there are spaces where black people would exist in higher numbers, different basing on genres and type of events and things like that, where I feel like then you also have to look at an intersectional analytical lens for those things, yeah.
No, thank you. Apart from the crowds and the cliches and the groups of people, is there something, according to your PhD, Caroline, that can be structurally embedded in a venue, in a club, that can prevent transgressive behavior from happening, no matter what the event or what the genre?
Yeah, we have to look at, we have different ways and different levels of preventive and reactive actions. And in a workplace setting, it's kind of easy. We have a lot of research on, you just have to change your work environment because a lot of toxic behavior happens because of the work environment you're in. But it becomes way more difficult in an unregulated place because the people that are visiting you, they maybe bought a ticket or they maybe just entered, but you don't have like a formal saying on them. So indeed, the thing I already said, the sexualization of your environment is something we can work on. There's research that says that in clubs where you have these poles, where you can pole dance just as a visitor, that they also show more sexual harassment.
Because the poles are a suggestion.
Yeah, that like sexuality is okay, sexualization is okay, everybody is open to this.
It liberates the room,
here. Yeah.
But also the predators. Yeah.
And the same goes for advertisements of alcohol. In what sense are they sexualizing, or are they like saying, oh yeah, it's okay because we show it in this and this way? So in that sense, you can really, as a club or as a venue, change your environment and the vibe that you give with entering this thing from like really this like sexy, night out, happy vibes to something that gives you a more safer space and not like the feeling that you will have a one-night stand anyway. If you enter, you leave with someone else or something like that.
The AB doesn't have any polls, so this is a point on their reports. It's difficult. Well, there are several difficulties about this topic. It's so big. We're also talking about festivals. We're talking about concerts. We're talking about clubs. Balance ton bar is the name of your Instagram page, Maite. What is for you the biggest difference in how to handle transgressive behavior happening at a concert where you're standing still and you're all watching the same thing, compared to a bar, a club where people have more space? Is one or the other, it's an easy question, but safer, you think, in your opinion?
Well, it's true that I don't really deal with like testimonies from concerts and stuff like that, so I couldn't tell you if it's safer. I feel it's an environment where people, I mean, maybe tell me if I'm wrong, but people come with one very big purpose, you know? I need to see this artist, and I'm very interested by that. In club and bars, it's very, very different. So, yeah.
I'd like to talk about a specific situation. When something happens at the AB, there are posters in the toilets that say, "Mail this address." I hear you say. What are your thoughts about a mail address, also compared to the phone number and the QR code that you guys have? In your experience, how effective is a mail address?
I mean, it's a bit of a lengthy process, no?
To say the least, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I know that with Balance ton Bar, people come because it's DMs, it's very reactive. People, want to get immediate support. I think that a phone line would be much more appropriate. But I don't know what you guys think.
But people, we would need resources to run that phone line.
Yeah.
And we don't have them,
Yeah,
It's all very self-organized what you do. So I feel like, indeed, there's what would be necessary and what we can actually do with the resources that we have.
When it comes to the phone number, even when something happens, apart from the mail, I'm going to forget the mail, something happens. There is a phone number. I text it, whether it's me or a friend or I see something happening. How lengthy is the process at a festival? Because you have to find this person on a huge terrain with 10,000 of people. You have to find security. You have to grab someone. You have to find this person. The perpetrator might be disappeared in the crowd. How does it work? And is it an effective method, do you think?
Well, actually, it's not a lengthy process. It's very effective and very efficient because we focus on the victim. And we have cameras all over the place. We have location,
GPS. You can share, you share location on WhatsApp.
Yeah. We can track the victim down in, basically a couple of minutes. So it's not lengthy.
Okay.
No.
And can you find the perpetrator?
Well, that's another story. But mostly not.
Okay, because he's disappeared.
Yeah, he has disappeared, or
I'm saying he, but that's also I'm sorry, that's pretentious. Could be anybody, of course.
The person has disappeared.
The person has disappeared. Now, when it comes to security, when in the process are they involved? Because you get for example, the text at night. How? Yeah, is it security? Is it police? Who is your backup?
Anyone, actually. The most, based on the issue, the care provider who is most entitled to give help, actually. If it's the police, it should be the police. If it's a trauma psychologist, well, then the trauma psychologist. So it's... it's based on the issue or on the problem that has occurred, actually.
Okay.
That's why we have so many staff on site. Because just to be sure that anyone who needs help gets the help he needs.
Mm-hmm. Because what I was wondering about is how safe a security person can feel. Because at the AB, for example, there is not a psychologist. There's not, you don't have the entire staff and all types of help at the AB. So when something happens, you mail or you go directly to the security. How safe does a security officer feel when it's the same person that went through your bag when you entered the room, the same person that is very strict with you can't take this? How safe does a security officer feel, according to you?
I think it's not a matter of job title, it's a matter of training,
Okay.
So through the testimonies, we have seen that a lot of people working as security staff in the bars and nightlife settings had very problematic reactions. Either sometimes they were the perpetrator, or they had problematic reactions when people came to them and said, okay, someone groped me, okay, someone harassed me, So it's a matter of course, taking the perpetrators away from that job, but also training people to have the right course of action in case, and putting in place a protocol in case something happens.
What is the right course of action according to you?
Okay, so it's lengthy, but first they need to know the numbers that they could redirect the victim to, So they need to, of course, listen to the victim, isolate
Yeah.
her, her, isolate the person, show that they care, and also redirect to professionals like CPVS, so Zorgcentrum, Sexual Zorgcentrum, and create a safe zone within the environment. So plenty of stuff to do.
To your experiences, would you like to add something to the procedure? What is important when somebody has had a negative experience?
Do not touch the person.
Oh, yeah.
Never touch the person. And
are
always...
There? No. But are there people that do that?
Yeah, of course. They want to give a hug.
Oh,
or
yeah.
Feel like, I'm sorry, what happened to you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Never do that.
Okay, that's one thing. Other pointers that you remembered, for example, when
Say what you do. I will now call. I will go to. I will take you to. Just to make sure that the person, the victim, feels safe and secure.
Yeah, and also always ask if there's someone else you can call for them or contact for them, and not always trust the person who's coming with them, because you might have a couple coming to you and the girl being like, something happened, or the boy, sorry, I'm also stigmatizing, I have to watch out for that, I know. And actually the partner of that person might also be the perpetrator.
Oh.
So you cannot always assume that if someone is bringing someone to you, that the other person, that person is safe already because someone's there. So always make sure to take that person with you individually and ask if it's okay if this person accompanies you in the process. Do you really want it? And really check on it in a sense that they feel safe and not feel obliged to say, yes, I feel safe, because he or she is still listening to this question as well.
Those are examples of people who truly say something happened to me. I don't have the data, but it's something that I've already done, for example. Let's say someone rubs against me, or there's somebody drunk who harasses. I try to shrug it off, and then I just move in the room. Whether it's a concert or a bar or a festival, I move. What if you get such an event that has been reported, but the victim just doesn't want to talk about it, or just wants to go home, or just wants to make something still of the evening? How often does that happen? Very much.
Yeah, more often than you would think, indeed. Yeah, we see in data again that there is not a lot of reporting. Lisbeth also said it, like there's so little complaints that actually happen. And what we see is that mostly people talk to friends, but even then, from a certain study that was done in the UK for particular, but that we really see that even only 40% of people expressed it to their friends. And then all the other more formal steps are even lower and lower and lower. So people just don't talk about it. And in one sense, it's because they think, I will not be taken seriously. Maybe I'm exaggerating. Maybe it's just part of the environment I'm in. I'm here.
Maybe it was my fault.
Yeah, maybe it was my fault. Maybe I did look wrongly or flirty.
Yeah, well, to understand also the continuum, like the problem of the continuum of sexual violence, we need to understand the 4 types of neurological response that's, happens within victims when something happens. So there are like the 4 Fs. There is
fight,
flight, freeze.
And what's the 4th?
It's fight, flight, which are the most respected reaction, or you pushed away or you left. But the freeze and the fawn are what happens often. Fawn is resignation. Freeze is just a state of paralysis, So we need to understand those type of reactions to better understand how to take care of victims.
And also take it into the protocol so that health providers can deal with that when somebody fights or flights or freezes or fawns, so that you know what's going on.
But also, respect when someone doesn't want to talk about it. Respect when someone doesn't want to press charge, because I'm not going to get into that subject, but we have a big problem with the process of pressing charge. Also, the justice system is also quite broken regarding like sexual violence and how they treat those cases. So we need to respect a victim's will.
Definitely.
I feel like then I will go into a tangent, but I don't feel like the system is broken. The system works perfectly as it is to protect, the patriarchy and white supremacy.
I mean, the system is broken for a victim.
Yeah, no, exactly. I feel like it's like resignation when things happen to be like. I don't even think it's brushing it off, because I feel like it affects you for good. Like, for example, I cannot stand people touching. Like nowadays, I cannot stand people touching me, like for no reason. Like even if it's like and it's yeah. I work in at events, and usually I'm doing artist management, but also like looking into the crowd and stuff. And sometimes people would come and be like, "Hi," because it's very noisy.
Like that, yeah.
It's very noisy. So like even if like, hey, they'll do that. I will flinch, turn around, and I'm already like not in a good mood to speak to you. Although you just really want to ask me something, and you see that I have my badge and I'm working, and that has come from multiple times. People just literally feeling like they could touch me, like however it is that they wanted, and yeah, one of the I think it was like 2021 when it was someone who works in the industry for a big festival and whatnot did that to me and multiple other few of the few black people that were in the room, and then we talked about it because we somehow, some of us happen to be related, and ever since then, then the process to go through that, even when you reported it, because it was people that I was going to have to eventually work with, or when I was working for a venue and someone who was working in production, a friend of mine came and told me like, yeah, this person, when we had closed, since we stayed and had some more drinks, then that person cornered me into like the apartment of this place and this happened. And then you hear that, oh yeah, it's quite known that this guy will behave like this. And I was like, okay, I'm already known as a person who's always calling out that there is this isn't wrong with the thing. I know that they're going to think that I'm doing too much, or obviously they're already protecting this person because he's their colleague and their friend. So what do I gain from this? I'm happy that my friend came and told me, and then they will always be protected from that person with me in this presence. But why would I even go and report or do anything? Because yeah, exactly. Nobody's going to say anything about that and white supremacy, because the victim was another black man, you know. So it's also like, yeah, sometimes it's like this system works perfectly so that the effort to report and do anything will be too bad, and then the process and how you're questioned and all this kind of stuff is so big that it keeps people who are already underserved and marginalized by that system from reporting it, because who wants to go through that? Honestly, who wants to go through that? Because it's not healing. And also, like, is there really any justice when you've been scarred for good?
Wow.
What's the justice in that?
Wow.
Yeah.
In actuality, that's our biggest frustration, that people do not report. It really is, because we are there to help. And if I receive an email 2 days after the festival from an angry father because his daughter has been harassed, but she didn't reach out to We Care a Lot, I can do nothing. It is so frustrating to receive or to read on social media what has gone wrong, but people did not bother or were afraid or.
It's not the not bothering. It's
no,
the,
yeah,
it's
actually,
it's the total.
What's the point?
Yeah,
honestly,
yeah.
What's the point?
Yeah. It's the fawn of the 4 F's. F's. What was it? Resignation. Just yeah.
Yeah, well, sorry, just one thing.
Go ahead.
Because when you look at the condemnation rate for perpetrators of sexual violence in Belgium, it's 1%. In France, it's 2%. So, I mean, yeah, what's the point, as you said?
Yeah, but even then, even beyond the point, like when you look at the rate of condemnation, I'm like, okay, if tomorrow, if everybody's quote unquote condemned, I'm like, but what changes in the culture? Because I think you always have to approach it like you don't, because nobody has to do anything. But I would love it if we approached everything from an abolition standpoint, not being like, oh, let's fill prisons with all the people who have done misdeeds. Okay, amazing, but it's not going to keep people from doing it, or they're not going to do it because they're afraid, and not just because they don't want to do it anymore. So where do we go towards when do we work towards abolition, so that actually people have less of that impulse plus that entitlement to people's bodies, and what has to be destroyed in the collective mind, and what do we have to do so that people don't have to do this? Because at the end of the day, it's really all based in whose bodies are people entitled to.
This is one of the questions I had. It's maybe a totally unrealistic question, but is it possible to have a world and a space and a society where there is no such entitlement and that there is no transgressive behavior? Call me naive. Is it possible? What do you guys think? I think you just answered your part of the question. Thank you for your points, by the way. What do you guys think? Is it inherent to human beings? Will we always have it? Will it always be occurring? Will we have this talk every year from now until eternity?
I think we can definitely spend some more hours on talking about the topic in that sense. But no, I don't think it's realistic, because also it's about how you experience it, and people may have different norms. So even if you think as a perpetrator, but I did nothing wrong, I just wanted to flirt I just wanted to meet you, that it may maybe in such an invasive or physical manner that the other person feel transgressed. So you just have this mismatch in norms as well. And I think that's something that's really important in general, that we need to talk about it. We need to talk about what's happening. We don't need to shut it down for ourselves or to minimize what happens to us. But we need to talk about it with other people, with what it does to us, because then also the conversation gets started and we can talk about norms and say, like, someone else might say, no, that's not normal what happened to you, you shouldn't. And then it also gives you the feeling of more power to do something about it.
This talk, I wouldn't have hosted it a couple of decades ago, so maybe I'm always the optimist, but I think these are little stones that we try to move in the big river of life. Sorry for being so existential. I'd like to ask a couple of questions about awareness still, because maybe that plays a part in mentality switches and changes, and then there's some room for questions from the audience, because Biba Doobie has already started her show for 15 minutes, and I know some of you guys would like to see that show as well. Yes, awareness, banners, T-shirts, logos, talks like this. How much awareness is already happening, and how much do we still need as a society, according to you, when it comes to this kind of behavior?
I will talk about it as a whole, maybe less about, those kind of settings. But, young people, they get the EVRAS, which is education to relational, affective and sexual life, twice over the course of 12 years of scholarity. So that's nothing, first. Going broader, in Denmark, they have launched something that's really good. It's education to empathy. Oh. So they give those courses to preschool children, 3 to 6 years old.
Amazing.
So I'm really looking at the broad picture there, but I think that's how it happens, And so this lesson of education to empathy leads to the consent course, or the relational and affective course. And I think that's, if we want to look to the future, that's what we need to do, to have
wonderful.
A society that's a bit more idealistic, like you said, with less transgressive behavior.
And is it possible, because I'm going to circle back to the practicality of this segment, is it possible to have this course of empathy at every festival for all co-workers, for every venue?
For all festival goers.
Yes, I know.
Yeah,
it's a lot of people.
That's what we talked about it in the dressing room. So now in Brussels, you have the Poésie Masculine, which is a French initiative.
Does anybody know? It's
so
please explain,
it's not known, but it's something really interesting actually, and it's a room that's made, a small room with a lot of screens, and you walk through it, and it's based on street harassment. So when you walk through it, you walk to the screen, and then somebody's there and starts harassing you. So it's really meant there to raise awareness of what actually women experience. It's specifically focused on women, what women experience when walking out on the street, and it's now staged in Brussels, in the Beurs. And actually the police officers have to do it obligatory now, just to indeed get this thing that they don't have to minimize if a victim comes to you with a story, because some things like that are really intrusive. And then in the evening it's open for public. But I think these may be avenues, definitely at festival sites, to organize something to raise awareness. I think in clubs or bars it's more difficult, because you cannot have really this booth and things going on, and there we will have to work with other measures or other things that we could do. And then you could even be, indeed, I know at the female toilets there are these awareness banners and look out for each other and send an email, or here is a QR code. I've never been in a male toilet. I don't know what's there on one sense for victims, but also on the other hand you can also make sensibilization for how, well, if you want to flirt with someone, how do you do it, and not just maybe you should just start a conversation instead of start touching or dancing with someone. So we can really see it in a lot of different ways.
Those are some very practical tips. When it comes to We Care a Lot, there's another festival season. Well, it's not here, but the names are already dropping. The lineups are coming. What are the pointers that you take from the previous editions that might change for the festival summer of 2025? You can be totally honest. Is there? Well, there most certainly could be room for improvement. It's still very fresh and young. Yeah. What are the plans for 2025?
We're going to focus on the bystanders effect, and the reporting. If something happens to you, please reach out. Those are the two main focus points, actually.
And with more awareness, how will you initiate that to get more of those things?
Well, we will use our social media more often. We will hang more banners. We will send more push messages through the app. We will do anything within our power.
Yeah.
But
with the canals that you have, just improve.
Mm-hmm.
Eric and Maite, what can I wish you for your branches? Let's start with Balance ton Bar. What are the goals and ambitions, and where do you see your project going in the future?
I would talk about, the nonprofit I founded. So I founded this nonprofit called Artemise, which takes care of survivors of sexual violence, whether it's adults or children. Voila. So I hope to expand its mission. I hope to take care of as many people as possible and hire as many therapists as possible to do so. And all our services are free, so I hope to keep it that way and to be able to help as many people as possible.
That is amazing. And Eric?
Let me talk about non-free services, because I feel like labor has to be paid, especially when it's like people putting themselves in that situation. Because was it earlier this year or last year, we also did a talk on safer spaces and how such a thing was not always like possible, not because there's substances and whatnot, but also what can then organizations do to at least prepare, to try to prevent, or at least when something happens, how to act in the best way. Because indeed, I dream of a world where when we can actually focus on prevention and not reaction, but whatnot. And I'm happy because I don't want to point them out in the audience, but I'm happy that they're here because they were part of that talk that we did for Listen Festival in 2023. Now remember, but Somto. Hey, Somto. They've done very great trainings. They worked for Nacht.be, and they're also now a trainer on safer spaces, or at least what can you do so that when it comes to prevention and reaction, good practices, and that come from years of experiences. They're not infallible because we're always all learning, but I feel like it's great to pay people with experience and knowledge and who have integrated an intersectional analysis tool to those spaces that Black, queer, gender marginalized, and other type of experiences can bring to the table and understand how the work works better, and can understand the coloniality in all of this. And I feel like trainings by people like Somto would be great as a start, even if it doesn't solve anything, but at least you already put some tools in the team.
belts.
Yeah, so
Hey.
Somto from Nacht.be,
Big up.
pay them. Exactly, thank you.
This is a safe space in itself.
Yeah, but you have to pay for those services because people research and it comes from their experiences, and they put toolkits and all this kind of stuff. And I feel like it's a good investment so that
Wonderful.
it's not have to and rely on on non-traditional security, like not always act in a very police type of way.
Yeah.
Yeah, have security, like I love to call it.
Oh, nice.
Exactly.
Wonderful, thank you. Before we dive into the questions from the audience, maybe you have a response to my final round of questions. Maybe there isn't any, but is there something top of mind? Because we've tackled so many different aspects and corners of this huge topic. It was quite the challenge for me as well. Is there something that you would still like to share? Because the music industry is listening, they are here. A very practical tip maybe, or just an insight that you have that you want to share. This is the moment. Caroline, I see you grabbing the mic.
Yeah, of course. I always have something to say.
I love PhD students.
Know that listeners, we can all maybe make the world already a little bit a better place. And there are definitely some things that you can do. The first one is when you see something happening, is to distract the situation. And this can really be in many different forms, and probably also depends if you're an introvert or an extrovert, how likely you are to do this. But if you just start going crazy about it, you can just dismiss anything that's happening. For example, if Eric would now start harassing Maite, and I goes then it would be like, okay, what the hell is going on? And that gives Maite time to leave. And it's really stupid, but it works because it's just something that happens that people are like, what the hell is going on? And it gives a little bit of time for someone to escape. Another thing is start a dialogue. So start talking to someone. If you think something is going on weird, just go like, hey, are you also going to watch, or do you know at which stage this band is going to play? What time is it? Do you have the light? Just ask it, and then you really make this connection with that person, start a dialogue, and then you can immediately like feel the vibe of what is going on. You can also delegate, because it can be scary to intervene. So talk to the people around you, because you're not the only one noticing it. We keep it for ourselves because we don't talk about it. But look at the people around you, and you may, because then if that's going on, I might just look at Anja and we will share the look like, this is not okay.
The look. Yeah.
And then we're both in this together. And then you can say, okay, maybe you go get the security guy. I'll just keep an eye on this. So really get other people involved, because you feel way stronger. And we also see in research that the first person stepping up, that's the most difficult one. But once someone steps up, a lot of other people join in. So really feel that power and do it in advance by maybe talking to someone. I can say, do you also think that that's kind of a weird thing going on? And also, if you dare, just say, hey, Eric, stop that. What are you doing? This is not okay what you're what you're doing here. And also the last one is to document what's happening. Also, if you don't dare to intervene,
Smartphone?
Yeah, smartphone, especially if you have a WhatsApp number of We Care a Lot or another SIM that's in place. You can make a short movie, send it, say, I'm here, this is going on, I'm worried. And then people can get things started. Also, if you don't dare to like directly intervene or at other places, document. Afterwards, go to the victim, say, I'm sorry, I didn't intervene, I didn't dare to, but I have proof. So if you want to go to the police, if you want to make a complaint, I can help you, I can send you to proof, I can go with you as a witness. So that are like the 5 Ds of what you can do as a bystander in such a situation. And definitely spread the word, talk about it, because if you're in doubt if something is transgressive or not, you're not going to be the only person with
it probably
doubts.
is, because it's all about picking up vibes, and we're all human, and 9 cases out of 10 it is transgressive.
I wanted to add something, but I don't have any solution, because I love to say this, like, because I'm here, I don't have the answers. It doesn't mean that I have all the answers and solutions, but
of course.
I also feel like in all these conversations we should take neurodivergence into account, because not everybody might be reacting to the same way, and also all these stimuli that are here in music-led environments where there's noise, strobing lights, and all this kind of stuff might not make everybody react in the same way, and I think we should be making space for that, and then also studying how does different type of neurodivergence affect your reaction and what you do in that space.
Thank you so much for pointing that out, because I work at festivals, and if there wasn't a backstage, then I would be completely overwhelmed. So safe, it's relatable for you guys as well, because more and more people get. Yeah. We have to function in this society with so many stimuli, and music industry is just 10 times that. So
the trauma over the years, especially since I started even working in it, so I'm in it all the time. People be like, "Oh, Eric, you always likes to be dancing next to the DJ and hype them up." Indeed, I'm very much a hype man, but also just because I cannot do crowds anymore. Yeah. From all these experiences of like being touched, and I cannot do crowds anymore. Yeah. I get like social anxiety, so I will always be either in the front, in the corner, or with the artist on stage, because everything is
adaptation, and it's how
when you're neurotypical, you're like, ugh.
I think a lot of people can relate. I can tell by the giggles in the room. And anybody has to add? Yeah.
Sorry, maybe one thing. Because indeed now I said, like, please be active, but concerning that, not everybody will be able to do that, and it's normal. And then if that's the case, don't blame yourself. Don't be angry at yourself if you did not intervene, because something is happening in a context you're not prepared of this going to happen. So it's also normal that you also freeze or flight. If possible, in the end, go report it, go say it somewhere, even though you feel like nothing can be done about it. At least it's reported and we can handle. But don't feel bad for yourself if you do not intervene at that moment in time, because you are also only human. So I would like to encourage that, but don't feel bad if you don't.
Thank you so much. This is a great panel and so much to discuss. Is there anybody in the crowd who would still like to add something, who has a question? There's a very... Oh, why? Oh, joy. We have somebody with a mic in the room. Oh yeah.
Oh,
there's.
Go to the question. I want to add something. We did have an event with a poll at AB, and we'll do it again tomorrow.
Oh.
I don't think we need to make spaces less sexy. To make it less interesting for perpetrators.
Well, thank
We
you.
need to sexualize exactly. We need to sexualize people less and to respect boundaries. But I don't feel like sex is the bad
Thank you
thing.
for adding it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Some bad
Questions?
minutes. Yes, several here. 3. We have a lady on the front, on the second row.
Hello, my name is Elke.
Hi, Elke.
I have something different to add, but I think it's very important in this discussion. So basically, in my free time, I'm a board member of an artistic organization, culture organization. And some time ago, we were confronted with some testimonies from young people within the organization, outside of the organization, that were reporting to us some transgressive behavior from a certain person who was already longer with the organization. So we, from my point of view, and some people might disagree, we did everything right. So we contacted our external prevention service, Mensura, which was useless. So basically they asked us, has the person done anything criminal? Which was not the case. So they said, we cannot help you. The second thing we did was we contacted the ombudsdienst in the cultural sector. Sorry, I don't know how to say it in English. Ombudsdienst, but I think it's the same in so we contacted them and we got a similar response. They said, okay, as long as no criminal activities have been done, so no rape, we cannot really help you. So at a certain moment, because this was repetitive behavior, very cliche, this was a very good artist. Sorry, I didn't want to disclose his gender, but so he was very good in being an artist. But anyway, so because of the repetitive nature of what happened, because of the fact that the director of our organization already addressed it several times with him, and also because of the fact that a lot of people that came forward with testimonies were really under stress, afraid, and so on, we took the decision to basically end the contract in a very respectful way. So we paid what he was legally supposed to receive. I think he got too much, but okay, fine. But anyway, so much time later, in the beginning when it happened, we got from in the sector a lot of responses that said it was a very brave decision. But we are 1.5 years later. Most of the comments we get now is you should have handled it differently. The other thing is he took us to court, so we are in a very expensive court case. It gets out of our budget, so things that we should spend on artistic activities is spent on this stupid court case. And basically, we are in a situation where I still feel very proud of the decision that we as voluntary board members took. But it is tough, and we feel very much alone. And actually, I don't know where to go from here.
I'm with you. You are a hero without a cape.
The director of the organization is in the room, so he's a real hero, but okay.
Definitely, I can also only applaud. And maybe Lisbeth wants to reply on this, I can assume.
Please contact us. I will give you my... Please contact us and we will see what we can do.
Oh, wow. Thank you, Elke, for your story, and thank you for the very direct...
and just one thing. If it's transgressive, repetitive transgressive behavior, it is a criminal offense. And it is criminal according to the labor law. So I don't understand, but I mean, you're not... Actually, our experiences, and they are very angry with me when I say this in the media, but our experiences with external prevention advice bodies is that it all depends on the person that is your case manager. You have good ones and you have not so good ones. And we are very frustrated.
Now you've got a very good one on your team, I think. There was a question somewhere in this part of two, the lady in blue and the lady with the curls.
Yeah. Blue?
Yeah. Hi. First of all, thank you for this panel. I think it's a very important subject. So even if we're starting small, it's good that we're tackling it. Yeah, my name is Dani. And my question is a bit more practical. I think we were talking about crowds, and I think crowds in their own can be like a beast. They're terrifying. I get very triggered by them, so I always stand in the back of the room. But especially at festivals, obviously, for example, the Grote Zaal here in the AB, there's big crowds and it can be intimidating. But especially at festivals, when you're like fighting to get to the front, you're looking back, there's a sea of people, and you're like, how do I get out? And I've seen people, you were talking about well-being as well, sacrifice not drinking water or like taking care of their health just to be there at the front. So how can we build places or station people so that it's easier to get to people and help them and have them find help? How can we structure a venue better?
Anja, I'm going to look at you for this one, or combined with
That's a
Caroline,
tough one.
because it's festivals and big crowds and how to reach effectively.
Yeah, what you see at really bigger, like the main stages, often you have really the crash barriers that make a zone in the middle, and sometimes also with a bit like a visgraat, like some sidelines of crash barriers. You can imagine what I mean. And in there are often security agents or any staff that you can talk to. So I maybe think we can do that more. But of course, when you have like the smaller stages, it's hard to do that because you don't have the room to do it. But often there are a lot of people present, and it's really a matter of also being attentive to them and look for them. Because definitely in the front there's almost always security. First aid is often present as well. At emergency exits, if it's in a tent or any construction, there's also oftentimes people, or if they aren't there as a venue, you can put people there. At bars, you can find people. So sometimes it's when you go in somewhere to be prepared and be proactive already a little bit, like if something happens, where can I go to? Because the moment something happens, your brain is occupied with what the hell is going on, what do I have to do? And if you're then already prepared, or if then something in you knows where to go, that's a good thing. So I think on the one hand, it's as from the festival side, we need to communicate maybe a lot or make it very clear where you can find people. And on the other hand, as someone visiting, really also look for where can I find someone. And definitely, indeed, at very large crowds, have these crash barriers that have like a safe zone or just some oxygen available to head to.
Basically, plan your escape route a little bit and find a smart spot. Thank you for your question, Dani. And then there was the lady in front.
Thank you.
Hello.
Thank you, everyone, for this panel. My question is maybe more for Anja and Erik, and also for people who organize events themselves. There's a lot of small, people, groups organizing events, and it's an important topic also for, organizations that have less money for the trainings and stuff. And my question, out of curiosity, is also if you work together with security officers. We talked about security officers being a point of contact for a lot of people. Do you use any criteria for the security you work with? Do you look at the trainings they had? What are criteria you can look at for the security you work with?
Good question.
At Pukkelpop, we have a training day for everyone who is involved with We Care a Lot, the police, the medical, the doctors, but also our security team, basically anyone who wants to attend the training day can come to this training. And last year we had more, I think, 250 people coming to this day, and we focus on actually what you said, how to react when someone is a victim of transgressive behaviour, but also we teach them, we train them on all kinds of drugs, on how to spot someone who is intoxicated and stuff like that. So, yeah, I don't know if this answers your question, but we just organize a training day. And is it for, because you said everyone who wants to attend, but is it also obligatory? I don't know how to say it, like
mandatory for everybody in the team.
Well, you cannot make it mandatory, but everyone who is responsible for a team is there because we care.
And why can't you make it mandatory?
Because we have a lot of volunteers too.
Ah,
We have 15,000 volunteers, so you cannot.
okay.
Yeah. But we have a very high show up rate. Yeah.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, the question was not addressed to me, but I will answer anyway. No, what can be really, as an event organizer, what you can definitely do is sit together with all the other departments that will be involved. So with the security team that you will employ, also with the police officers, because there's also a big difference in that. And as we've heard, there's not a lot of faith in how they handle it. So really try and sit around the table with it and say, this is how we want to handle transgressive behavior. So this is our procedure. If something happens to you, we want you to behave in this and this way. So we want you to not touch the victim, to be open, to contact us immediately, maybe make sure that there's an internal number of the person that's handling these kinds of events within your event. So just communicate in advance and don't expect them that they are on the same line as you are. So really sit together to the table and make sure that they will do what you as an organizer want them to do.
There are some organizations as well that can act as resources like Plan Sacha. They can come and train your staff, Safe Nights. There are like Collective Osmose also. So I don't really know the Flemish counterparts, but I know that's in the French-speaking part. That's it.
And Eric, the question was addressed to you as well. You said in the beginning that you have to work with security teams provided with several venues where you enter. What is your approach?
That was, again, ideally. Because I don't want to pretend like I said, any of the organizations I work with or for are doing the right thing. Because I don't want to be hypocritical as well. When I started in this, when I started like having like proper jobs in this industry, I was working as part of audience development and audience management team. So back in the day, I was like, okay, what can we do? Working with communications, like what could we do? Like it was nice to have ideas, but I moved on to what I'm really passionate about, which is programming. And I try to keep myself at that and give my experience to these things, because also sometimes without realizing it, in all of these organizations, you also end up being like the wokeness advisor when you're like a black queer person, where they come to you every time. They're like, okay, are these the right flags? Is this like the right way to sing? Is it inclusive enough and all this kind of stuff, where you have to literally go and get out of your personal experience and come explain how things should be done. So, yeah, I try not to try to impose this and be like, go towards paying organizations and things that do that. But indeed, in the case of smaller organizations, like I organize parties with like different collectives of black queer people, and we're very blessed that people within the community also know that we're not doing this party for a commercial purpose. We tried. We still pay the DJs on this kind of stuff, but we also have then a team of people who are like, okay, we want this party to go well, so we make it a collective endeavor, and we all inform ourselves. Sometimes we're very lucky because some of the people who are working with the safety are also people who have done trainings and whatnot, so we make it happen together. And also that's the beauty of the things. It's like, everybody wants to make big events without understanding, like, you know, we're not Peter Parker, but yeah, with great power, with great events comes great responsibility. That means you have to manage crowds. And if there's a party and it's only 50 people at that party, for me, first of all, it's amazing, because usually it means everybody really wants to be there. But also, it's also more manageable when you can keep eyes on things. And so I'm very blessed that the parties that are organized with collectives like outside of institutions are smaller. So then that means we can more easily manage those things. But I think also who you put in your team is great. I wish there were organization, like I wish there was like a security visit way. Like I'm even giving away my ideas for free because I really don't care. I want things to happen. If there was like a visit way called security, where they would train queer people and pay them to come and do security and really be like, use also their personal experiences, like sometimes they had the trauma, but also to be like, we can spot things easily and we think about it. We have deconstructed gender and the norms of gender, and also if it's people like who are black and whatnot, so they come and do, but not be the wokeness advisors, but to really be doing that function, but in places where it's very relevant. But yeah, I don't know. For the organizations that I work for, I am not in charge of volunteers. I wish that the people who are charging volunteers and the people who are charging security would make all of this mandatory. It should be made mandatory, these trainings. The trainings are not enough. There should be so many other things. We should also go beyond. Yeah, we should also go beyond just putting rules on the wall. Great, the rules are on the wall, but what does that mean? Sometimes it's also to make yourself, as an organizer, feel better. And there are now really concrete steps done toward this. And also, again, moving on from reaction to focusing on prevention as well. Knowing what to do in reaction, but when are we going to work towards prevention and abolition of those things, you know?
Thank you for wrapping it up and for everything that we tried to discuss in this past 1 hour and 40 minutes. Prevention was there with the great parties come great responsibility. I'm going to remember that one. And polls. We should have polls at parties, most definitely. I'm going to thank you guys so much for being here, for the very smart questions as well. Anja, Caroline, Erik, Maite, you've been wonderful. It's been insightful. I think we can all agree. And thank you guys for being here. So this applause is for you guys yourselves and for this panel. Enjoy Biba Doobie if you're still going for half an hour, and enjoy the rest of your evening.